是没这个策划的话，在成某的巧没事吧？那是弄两小孩心嘛，弄小孩心要嘛，是这个意思。人就这老板去了要嘛，也是啥？我听说有了这些个，我在记。
So we are in the 10 things to encourage yourself. We continue with verse number 3. Reflecting upon the inevitable consequences of karmic actions, encourage yourself to abandon misdeeds and non-virtue. So what this verse teaches is that karma is undeceiving. For example, it is said in the sutras that fire might turn cold, and the sun and the moon might fall from the sky. The wind might be caught with a lasso. All of this is possible, but for karma to be deceiving is not possible. So karma is undeceiving.
那工钱那是重要的，因为没给工钱那呢，给我没给多少嘛，这重要的，给我是没给就嘛的是，我这没给我的给我就了，给我没给可怕的是，给的他有了，干那上天是干那上天是，可我个想，那不那想，但是这个难度，这你给我没给就我呢，没给我就我这个就嘛的是。
Igazi gépusonnan doppun viina tuk uusi pitää
ne, täytyy sanoa.
Oot. Sä oot kannakti kuulkaa sun.
Ei se mene.
Det.
Mutta sanoa.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
我那给我们给学校的，没给我们学校的用嘛的，是干那上台的，是干那上台是个路个强，给我现在就个路，没给现在我都，然后给我就对吧，没给人动啊是，慢点我叔叔用的是，我这样这个忙不起我呢，这要把钱呢这给我的没给是吧，这地方啥呢，就这些行做这个了，我也会这些，然后我这个查这个也是。嘛，到现在咱说了，美国的是这个，以前他这些呢，各把的去没啥，早期他的话呢，比方就是说的，多的来讲啊，是挺这个的是的，以前是说的来说呢的，各把家说呢去啥嘛的，说的那个的是，我现在各把家去没啥，就没吧，早期他了，我那就现在只有就这个是了，真的就是没有个的种了吧。
So in the Gongchik, it is said that virtue never turns non-virtue. No, virtue doesn't become non-virtues, and a non-virtue doesn't become virtue. There is a very clear distinction between virtue and non-virtue, and so it is said that it is just like the the line between white and black. They're like completely oppositional to each other. So if a virtue, if it is virtuous, then there will be a corresponding result. So each ripens with its own result, and if it's non-virtuous, it can only ripen into its corresponding result, and it cannot ripen into anything else. And however, even if one has accumulated heavy non-virtuous karma, if one confesses it, then it is possible to purify, or the result may be lightened. And so however, in general, aside from that, whatever karma is created must eventually ripen when the time is right. So when the time comes, then um, it will ripen. In a sutra called the sutra of sort of 100 like stanzas. It says that even after 100 eons have passed, karma, the accumulated karma, and never perishes. Whatever karma is accumulated will eventually ripen into its corresponding result when all the conditions align. So,
我就是么的那个，当时中国那个很上是呢，就去早完了，就过了早完了，可能就这一些啊，才认识。我之前对他这块朋友，对给我主要是那说，别从其他是来开启过的，从头我之前对那说，给着这刚刚都说咱起过去的这，开始说说，这个群众是哪帮过的，给我群众是哪找过的，起手起就哪找过的，我之前对给这说的嘛，我现在是两年前呢。那方面的话，他做上级主要强的是。
Milarepa had said that the root of Dharma is trust in karma, and therefore it's important to give up non-virtue and do whatever virtue you're able to do. He said that give up even small negativity, even small misdeeds, and practice even small virtues. So if you practice following the law of karma in this way unmistakenly, then that will lead to temporary happiness and ultimate enlightenment.
真的，他的希望是的，咱可别年美那上的才玩着吧的，不嘛的是。我咱可别年吧，可别年美是，咱可别这边这当啊，可是的，有了这如果这出的呀，他说托嘛说话，去可是的，咱可别是的，别像是像那个drama嘛这是小点子那么有的呢，小点子呢要看的通嘛，现在可是多多小点子呀，咱们上多，这种说咱们没，这种说太多多多下，这可别是的，这的多要是那都是送的别想。密码从严送送着这下子呢，可多但同时也看见有人在看的同学个嘛，我这呢那在可哇的里面的动画里，特别晓得你要把啥东西动画是，这呢一大提供给动画是，突入人口给动画是，每几个人去给动画是，这个呢也他们也差不多给动画，但他起不东西动画是，我这个话是出这动画，这个我就这么来这个这种可能动画是，上的应用车祸当中多。我咱们应用车库当上多也不咱们应用车库当国家的事务中吧。
Then we move on to verse number 4. It says, reflecting upon the faults of samsara, encourage yourself to attain liberation. And so the faults of samsara, no matter where we find ourselves in samsara, we are not liberated from cyclic existence. We circle endlessly in the 6 realms. We are just like a fly trapped in a closed jar. So sometimes the fly flies on the upper parts of the jar, sometimes on the lower parts of the jar, but it never is actually free. It never leaves the jar. When it circles around the higher parts of the jar, that is like going to the higher realms. And when it circles in the lower part of the jar, that's like circling in the lower realms. But we never escape from samsara. And in samsara, the hell beings experience the suffering of heat and cold, and the hungry ghosts, they suffer from hunger and thirst, and the animals, they live in ignorance and slavery, and the humans experience the 4 kinds of suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. And the demigods experience constant quarreling and fighting, and the gods experience the suffering of change and falling to lower rebirth. And so, for this reason, Milarepa had said, when I think of the 6 realms of samsara, then um, a sadness, a strong kind of wind of sadness arises in my heart. So
대다 계단가 좀 먼저 차나 계획 동안 선생 요다 그거 대가베 동안 다 계획 동안 계획 동안 스베 치고 그랬다 아 지지말라 배송을 그러지 가르송을 세나 나고 나고 집에 자로 가스 나 호수다 나 샤쇼면 자나고 라테 가고 차고 그랬어 나고 집에 자로 가스
ich kann da den nachvollziehen.
나고 집에 자로 가고 차고 자고 차고 러베 통소 러베 통소의 소소소 특훈도 비슷한도 소소소 훈련을 했어요. 서로 통소를 했어요. 마외 제양 태웠어. 마외 제양 태웠어. 계좌시나 유튜브만 시키라. 제네 파트였어. 마외 제보를 했으나 랍도 말 시키라. 마외 제양 태웠어. 안보 통화 매장 태웠어. 안보 통화데 매도 제보 했어. 每条是有买的，你们到了时候要给的，而且俺们是他们买的这是，新手不能新手，那新的少嘛，新的是我们他讨论的说了嘛，活动的呢，其实都是新的，这个我只是往新的话，
不重要。
哦，不去看这那是啥了这，
嗯
那是我个人提的，我有嘛，这这不是你，这新手不能新的，不好是嘛，真的。
Geschichte går kalle
망고시고 코로나에 수고
kalle kornoshik.
코로나지 딱 시작 코로나 이거 쇼살고 뭐 시소东西 코스다 세상에는 뇌정축 세상 상황 在年年就是错对哪怕错路的，但领导那时候给我是马上给说判个，不讲的不提出判，他那个基本上都是了，那我的那个谁当年那对象出事。你他那是帮着，但你的那是我他帮了错了好了，他给出去，他给的都嘛也得不，中国，我这边给的都嘛也得不，那我这了是，但那我这边东安蒙古是，那我去穷都好了，他那我去穷的都好噻，你跑到去了，都没事吧？嘛些是再到对吧？什么谁才的是，每年都到可惜我可惜我，在哪里去？再到他娘才的，那我去穷都好了是，都没事吧？嘛说啥是？ 치와 넘지 만면다 치와 넘지 그 만면다 그러지 넘지 만면도 야 소도야 요 말다 뭐야 뭐 말다고 넘지서 만면요라 어때 테나기 송도 어때 다 요바 소총 맞서 배동아 요바 소총 맞서 배동아서 매바 제베 니 요바 소총 소야 빨리 하고 아 대상 가서 뭐 추고서 내가 내냐서 여보 매래 빼가게 요래 그 매바 소라 한테 소바 마다 강에 빼 먹을 거 봐. 어제도 샤디가. 지금 말하게 추고 나면 요동이 그거 나면 매도이 여미 탐지 동아주 여미 이렇게 동아에 스탄도드 어떤 자동화 책을 동아 서다 자동화서 최도 뭐 책을 줘. 你前把子车位动啊，你前把子把车多嘛，这东西都车着个是，我这里咱那个没得在抢的，动啊车有了，这生产西把子咱那说，他说嘛做其他工嘛，这如果动啊西把子有嘛，那个我们动啊一般那些这种可能这年外那些车上动啊这从哦，说的是嘛，这把这动啊弄回来，这咱那说，可把是研究间的，这他把这边可老是结果出来，但是吧，这几天这边老是结果出来也是。
Um, so then, so then when we no as what is it as what is that? Sorry. Oh yeah. So for example, so Milarepa, that was after. Okay. So for example, as human beings, so we experience the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death. And there's a song about that by Milarepa. And so he said that he sang about the sufferings of aging first. They said that first uh, our black hair turns white, and then the bones deteriorate and the teeth fall out, then you can't speak clearly because the tongue becomes obscured, and mm, and then mm, and then the eyes become cloudy, so the sense faculties decline, and the eyes lose their clarity, and they become cloudy, and you don't see so clearly anymore. And so then kind of um, mm, and so then your kind of your body becomes like filled with kind of infested with lice. I guess in Tibet that's something that everyone has. And so then friends go far away, and one is ashamed and embarrassed, um, and so one experiences a lot of like suffering from aging, as one's physical strength naturally declines. And so he said, when then he's saying about the suffering of being sick, he said all so when you're sick, that all your strength that you have had just fades away, is lost. You cannot sit up straight, and your strength fades, and you're coming close to death, just like a butter lamp being blown out by the wind. And once it goes out, it's hard to bring it back. So there is the suffering of sickness, and then the suffering of death. And then he said there is the suffering of having and the suffering of not having. He said that those who have suffer from their possessions. We can see, for example, nowadays, a lot of people have a lot of wealth, but they also have that they suffer from the burden of that wealth. They have so much work. They constantly have something to do and to worry about, and of keeping their wealth, and it's just a hardship. But then also having nothing is a hardship. Being poor, the poor suffer from not having enough, or we suffer from meeting enemies, meeting those we don't want to meet. And we suffer from separating from those we do not want to separate, like our loved ones, our family and friends. We don't want to part, but we part. So there is just only suffering. So whatever karma is created, uh, karma will ripen, and it drags beings into the hell realms and so forth, the different lower realms, and the suffering that we as humans experience. And that's the nature of samsara. So therefore, we must cultivate a sense of renunciation towards samsara, and develop a wish to become liberated, to attain a state of liberation from samsara. So,
니마 그다음 게시에 다음 통과도 소리스. 어때 콩 아빠 시행원 하고 나시 너도 참자고 되는 시효사래. 니마 이제 담 시바 게리 롬노마서 이제 게샤시요사. 마마세 게리 같이 게샤시요사. 남 통과 같이. 남 통과 뭐 나고 나서 다 담고 같이 총벌 걸도 이제 야도 야부를 달아도 그래. 다른 통과 같이 그 너무 나고 나서 참다 뭐도 너도 제가 근데 이게 롬동바한테 시험 풀리다. 다 주로 남자한테 공치 쇼레스. 콘테 들치도야. 연태 마고 요레스. 당에 자라 나 공각 말에 선보다 콘크로아니메 선보다. 틱 뱀마시데 동안의 소리가 신기한데 이게 티 동아를 살아. 그 게모도 배제 쇼는 말스. 니마제 산 게모 팀마리 쇼를 도레스. 这是公民这个有点有啥吧？这个 키워드 촉표잖아.这时候把可以去把 키워드로 되게 모습을 그래서 제가 몇 모습을 비교를 시켜보다 그게 이제 제 장동안
there's a story about Kadampa master, Langri Tampam, and he would always look very sad, and he would often cry, and his students would wonder why he looked so sad, and some would ask, so how is the Geshe doing? And then the closest students would say that he always looks very sad. He was much better before, but now he looks so sad and he cries all the time. And then like one student heard about that, he was really inspired by his example, and he said that really shows his precious qualities. And so the reason why he cried is because he contemplated the faults of samsara, and that was just reason to cry. They said that he never laughed, but he actually did laugh one single time. And that one time that he laughed was when he smiled, was when he witnessed some mice trying to steal a turquoise stone, and trying to carry it out, but not being really successful. And so seeing them like struggling, like stealing that gem made him laugh. That was the only time he smiled. So
동아리상 내 장조 샘종화를 그만해. 자 그래 동아리 다니가 그래서 미안도 동아리 다니다 이슈사와 삼다 장조 샘종화를 장조 샘도 다 상제도야 줘래. 어제 그 장조 샘 장야 아생 볼만데 그래서
the next is verse number 5, and that is reflecting upon the sufferings of samsaric beings. Encourage yourself to train in bodhicitta. So now we have thought about the faults of samsara, so the suffering of beings comes to mind, and therefore next we must cultivate bodhicitta.
전에 단체로 주어지 그 람로나 세종을 청저 람로나 랑주도 배 동아리 랑주도 요배 동아리 당 강시 현재 동아리 소다 강시 현재 동아리 양가 세바군도 소디 동아리 스마바 세도 같아 지금 되는 초에 나 지금 첨부는这非常新的같아 지금 첨부는 그래서 어제 그래서 청저선 대장야 로만 되고 가장 계속해서 그냥 계단제니까 시행하지 총탑방가랑 그거로서 어떤 새로 정도 같은 아니다 새로 창조 생 자야로 그만데 생겨난 창조 샘된 상지에서 그래 전반이 창조 샘도 양 자야 그래서 그만데 그래서
Then Atisha, Lord Atisha, he stated in the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, he said that a person who desires to completely eliminate all the sufferings of others is truly supreme. So the person who desires to eliminate all the sufferings of others through understanding their suffering, that person is supreme. So he is describing the person, an individual of the highest capacity. The old Kadampa masters have also taught that I take all loss upon myself and I give all victory to others. So now this verse encourages us to cultivate love, compassion, and bodhicitta.
전에 가장 그게 체가 세대요 저게만 체가 세대 가지고서는 체가 세대 이게 배자의 통화사로 배자의 카르사로서는 쾌당제가 시행한 친 총탄방가랑 그걸 세대를 배치해 요사로 어제 요즘에 단공태로는 쉬워 총대 뭐 가지 계셔서 저 수용통제 랑 상바 세티 종의 사라레스 랑 상바 저 종의 딱 랑 상바 단 제가로 상태 송을 하사들래서 하사들래 그래서 정말 그게 스티요사래 저들 랑 상바 맞아요. 그래서 랑 상바 나봐 보소 제일 앞서
La relation?
랑 가서 쇼면도 총송제였어
Oh,
这重松这地方，它可能给电视的话，它所有的这个小区的是，然后上面电视流浪就
mhm.
差不多。它像用车子人多的是，你有的是老的是，可能像我们都是老的是。 본인 켜보면 도저히 다 담아서 여사 말해서 말해서 근데 켜보면은 내가 본인 켜보면 봤을 말해서 저기라도 지나로 변발했어 지나로 담배 사치 스낵 이게 말아 한번 많이 그거 치고 스테이크라 저기라도 말해서 지나로 변을 그래서 지나 랑 담배 사치 스낵 랑 통하는지 그거 치고 본인 비가 마찬가지야
음,
신발 마찬가지야 말했어 생각 지금 한다今年 수차로 계시 샤라스 되서 샤라는
mhm.
샤라스 되어서 제가 로레스 제가 해봤다. 그래서
잘하지, 소리?
제가 세워다 제가 통보 연로는 제가 해봐.
한보대로, 예,
제가
상충들라.
말해도 제가 너무 세코네 가는 데 나타나 제가 로스와
음,
등록해도 제가 해봐. 몰라서
지가방,
사서 일단 뭐 랑타발 공부 좀 살아.
음,
다 공부를 가는 로스는 다 가라 수양 비용 냠내 쓰지 계시 샤라스 되어서
음,
这也不认识了，这下来就在我在送，你妈妈不求学噻，有人我的他吃饭子那个求了那他去学噻，你咋求了学的，你这可以了噻，这可以去了嘛噻，你妈这。
음,
我把它过来了，说啥？这了罗些就，这这个我他第他第是个，这下来我过来拍，我说啥？这这个为他两的是等提纲的修罗去的修的是，我这咱就让修吃完可能来过来这里也是下来送的，这个他那个嘛，片上讲个先了，请穷他旁边上考试嘛，这路路穷农，他等我他去有位的老的是，晓得，这老女真的。但论着呢着，忙着呢着，上节我那听到马听那他那把的是，送的是，上节我呢听到马听就不来送的是，俺娘们去要做他提议送的是，小孩子啊，真的很听到马听到在哪老去的老的是，但是那可是他妈那有人不多过的是，听人那不是老的是。这样子的敌人在光娘娘头，那吃的在这吃下的老抽。这吃的是老抽吃的，反正切个把子，当自己做早晚没办法，现在常做现在办法，当自己做全没办法的，娘们几口弄多。
mhm, mhm. Um, yeah, that was a story about this Geshe Chekawa in the past, and so and that was during the time of Langri Tamban, who spoke those 8 verses of mind training, of which this quote we just mentioned before about I take all loss and I give victory to others. That was written on by Geshe Langri Tamban. And Geshe Chekawa, contemporary, he heard about that quote, but he didn't know about Geshe Langri Tamban. So, but he heard about that quote, and it really inspired him. And so he asked, "Where does this quote come from? Who teaches that?" And then he heard that there is this Icha Langre Damban. So he asked, "So where does he live?" And they said he lives close to Lhasa. So then he traveled there. He wanted to meet Langre Damban, and then when he got there, he asked around where he was, and then finally someone told him, oh, that he had already passed away. So then he was looking for his lineage holders, like who is his. He asked for his ear, the one, his regent. Where is his regent? And then so some people told him, well, there were two kind of nominees. Then one was Shangshung and one was Dodem, but they just couldn't agree on who will be the regent. So now we're still left without a regent. And so hearing that, then Geshe Chikawa thought that, well, that's not a good sign. That sounds like they're not getting along. And if they're not getting along, then they surely do not have those instructions that I'm seeking. So he didn't pursue them any further. Actually, later it turned out that the actual reason of their conflict was not that they were not getting along, but they couldn't decide who would they basically they were so humble that they each felt that they are not suitable to be the regent. So then Shangsheng would say, "No, you are the best better scholar. You should be the regent." But Doda said, "No, but I may be a scholar, but you are the practitioner, so you should be the regent." And so they just couldn't decide on who should be the regent because they were so humble and really actually practicing that verse, but that was not clear to Geshe Chikawa at that time. He just thought they weren't getting along. So then he thought he couldn't get the instructions from them, so he didn't go seek them. So then he asked for someone else who may have these instructions, and he learned about another geisha called Geisha Sharawa, and so he went to his monastery, and so he stayed there for quite some time and listened to teachings. But this whole time of listening to teachings there, he never once heard him mentioning that quote. And so because he never mentioned the quote that inspired him, he thought that I'm not going to find teachings on this quote here either. And so one day he was circumambulating the monastery, and along the way he met with that geisha, the teaching geisha Sharava there, who was sitting there, and so he joined geisha Sharava, and geisha Sharava then offered, "If you have any questions, you can ask me." And so then Geshe Chikawa said, "Well, I encountered that quote about taking on all loss and giving others all victory. And I was inspired by this quote. So do you have these instructions?" I really like this quote. And then Geshe Sharavam replied, "Whether you like it or not, if you want enlightenment, you must have this instruction. And in fact, this is my main practice. This is the very thing I practice." And Geshe Chekavam then was overjoyed, and he said that, "Oh, then please give me these instructions." And then Geshe Sharawa said, "I will give them to you, but to receive them, you would have to stay here for a long time. If you commit to staying here, then I will give it to you." So that's what he did. He stayed and he received teachings on this quote for an entire 6 years. So he stayed there training just in that for 6 years. And it is said that after this time, Geshe Chekawa was completely free of all self-grasping, and he cultivated a true altruistic mind. So,
다 그거한테 시행하겠어. 그거한테 선전도 친치로 주와의 상대 토성구만데 소원데 다 선전도 친치로 선은 친치다 나비바 나지 어제 다견이 제네다 친치로 주로 그래서 다한테 현도 차로 그러 어떤 지바 다와서 차랑 무슨 차네 그 주송도 되는 들어서 말스 truly 어떤 데 좀 truly person 제 남자 야보시야데 토바지 어떤 삼바치我这种不满足没完的不是초삼치고 있잖아. 와서 초삼자고 통일되는 도바의 삼바치를 야보거나 되네 된걸 친추로 받으시라 용을 말해서 나중에
we move on to verse number 6. That is reflecting upon the utterly deluded mental states of sentient beings. Encourage yourself to hear and contemplate. So the that delusion, when reflecting upon the delusion of sentient beings, you bring to mind you contemplate the misguided minds of beings, and that the misguided mind of a being is to grasp at a self, to believe in a self that doesn't really exist. And many other negative mental states of beings that are deluded. But it is mainly the grasping at a self where there is no self. And if we perceive a self, then we also perceive others. And if we perceive self and others, then attachment, hatred, and ignorance will follow. And as a result, we are confused about the path. And so therefore, this verse encourages to study, contemplate, and practice the teachings, because if you understand the teachings well through learning and reflection, then these misguided thoughts won't arise.
真的是娘娘去，那头上的娘娘去过，其实没那里，这种话，青年从前穷完去，老板出多都来起身，青年从前是老板出了几张的，要不城里送过来青年把它相对，我真的特别多，
今年可能
青年从前了是吧？
哦，
老板出多都来起，都来城边新过来，要不城些几过来。
哦，
真的，那边north 吃就是多想啊，我来其实那边 north 吃啊，然后我们在通啊，在多想着啊，我来是老了，就当我反正我要我来通的，要我都到了，我这里这是我让他说是体力我的，我在超三年的中就是超多人帮到都来起，超三年的都是超多人都来起，我这但是说来说晨曦多上工上天的晨曦我有钱的。我这是做钱呢，这在养多对应那养往上马需要把钱呢，我才请过来，在马来把的那个是出来，就是说在店里中医当说，忙我在出那可能或者我的，但是马来把是那路从马来把的，在做两年前呢，在做人块一些事的，我在马多天马来的，连牛毛估计现在你从我那哪里，到那来马多天的马来。连牛毛估计现在到那来一些的。搿我有点早晚用，我搿我有点早晚用，我真的我在那一般来说，买了一把这个也是下头呀，这个两年期也是。
Milarepa had said that words, kind of negative words, are like, although not physical weapons, they cut sharper than weapons, and therefore be mindful and heedful to when it comes to speech. Then when we are like surrounded by desirable sense objects, we may lose our self-control, and desire for them arises. So therefore, when seeing pleasant things, be mindful. When spending time with companions, jealousy may arise. Therefore, be mindful, and guard your mind with mindfulness. Whether you're going or staying in whatever you're doing, when afflictive emotions arise, you lose self-control, and they proliferate because of ignorance. And ignorance is the first of the 12 links of interdependence, the source of all confusion. However, when you practice with mindfulness, with awareness, with wisdom, and then this ignorance becomes primordial wisdom. So also Milarepa had said that if we don't realize the mind, and this ignorance, it is ignorant, and then this mind becomes the ground for all negativity and affliction. If you do realize it, then it becomes the source of all virtuous qualities.
我真的到对吧？得起，主要花钱帮我干了，我那上的工作，那可嘛的，咱主要去推送的地方，下次帮人干的还不，咱可嘛的那速度花钱这个，你们花钱才对呢。这说你们看加入吧，这怎么去那个吧？你们花钱才别说着不了。我听花钱在你们光送的去干那个，那是光想了，光把没光把意思，光把我去了一张，到时说是光家，那这个在光送那在光。然后我吃回来是，那这花钱的，往上上去光图了，搿来看，花钱那边，花钱就把阳光被种了，种多的，可是花钱，光的花钱兄弟的，老年花钱光的兄弟的，老年把的花钱光送的，说到这钱，说到拍了，就拍上真个的，我在那一提起，他说了个的是。你要这个节像这样的，是你要这个他来通过自己是光的节呢。 티고 유리본에서 말했을 때 유리종 말했을 마소되게 제한 진짜이로 말했을 유리종게 추가하면서 유통도 기사 추가 추도 말했을 어떻게 검 유리본 생시 공시한 서대 검정에서 어떤 검 유리본 검 말했을 때만 어디 다다다다 뒤쪽에 어차 방가와 방가와라고 방가야 상나 방가 오면서 내가 좀 말했을 때 검 유리본 치고했을
And so next time we come to the next verse, verse number 7, and that is reflecting upon the difficulty of leaving behind the habitual tendencies of delusion. Encourage yourself to meditation and accomplishment. So the difficulty of leaving behind habitual tendencies. So once we are confused, since we're confused, then it's very hard to remove these habits, these habitual tendencies. It's very hard because they are deep-seated tendencies. These afflictions and afflicted habitual tendencies, even though we are aware of them, we don't want to have them, they always take over control. And that is because we are very strongly habituated to them. It is said that so meditation is nothing else but habituation. So it's not meditation is nothing, not some exercise to meditate upon something, but all it is habituation. And so currently we are habituated to afflictive emotions and negative habits, and it's difficult to reverse them instantly. There's another teacher called Gyalva Yanggompa, and he said that the habitual tendencies of a negative mind are like a rolled scroll, like a scroll of paper, like a rolled scroll. Even when when a new experience, a positive experience may arise, it is destroyed by these negative conditions, these negative tendencies. Delusion cannot be cut off in just a short time. Therefore, you must extend your meditation. You must meditate for an extended period of time. Otherwise, confused habitual tendencies will always arise and prevent you from practicing. Even if you don't want them, if you want to reverse them, you want to give them up, but it's hard. It's not easy just to give them up. You need to meditate. And as we said, meditation means habituation.
근데 이마 선발제 요소로 선발제 다 없어지. 왜 수고든状况 상쇼스. sempre rele shortis. Alors c'était un nom de charme, mais là suko na zugina. sempre short, 但好像挺也在因为好像那怎么在考虑的结上这说了是吧？我这里强调说，天你当然是相当我们真的两面在起呢，之前我大致两面起过的是，真的就是么来的，从一个开始，西北有钱庄完的，前老情况的话同时，那西北有钱庄就是的呢，前老情况的话同时，前老情况是你看到是呢，那别想了，别想了噻，别再看的是呢，真的我说别想出生这一囊了，前老就用了接触囊。前老是劳动的呢，前老是被跑了的是，跑从那个来看，秋刚把土嘛，是在出生中把的是，我别听的，这两面在起一空的，但先把是跑了的呢，这把后当说真的当今嘛，一把当下，这不能说都是嘛，是在我们当的的种多，我才听了几年的几个啥的。
There was once a retreatant, and so he said that my body is like sorry, lupoti kong champati lupoti chumpanan shiri sapsa.
如果状况上放的脏的国家去了是，状况的都是啊，
Yeah.
现在能把这说的是。
So he said as a retreat and said, yeah, so that my he went into isolation to do retreat, but he said what happened really is that I put my body into a prison while my mind was wild and out of control, was not at all isolated. So basically, all that happened is the body was isolated, like a prisoner, but then the mind was not at all under control. And that's because due to this past, these old habitual patterns, the mind goes all over the place and gets carried away by all kinds of thoughts. So therefore, and the way to practice is to focus inward, to focus on the mind itself, face inward and look at the nature of this mind when you practice. And so regarding this practice, then Milarepa had said, practice awareness. And so your mind, your consciousness, your awareness is like a bird, like a crow on a ship, a sea. So the crow will always try to fly off the ship. It flies around, but since it's in the middle of the ocean, eventually it gets tired and always comes back to the ship. There's no other place to come back to. So similarly, if you let the mind be and you just look at the mind and you rest within it, you let it be, it will it will naturally come back to meditation.
真的，当然这结巴是吧？你们听的牛毛吧，写起吧，上面你不个嘛的是，那对你嘛，牛毛写起毛的是，但是牛毛写起话是，但牛毛写起毛，牛毛多吃些当在毛上烧了，这年毛个嘛，他多吃些，前两年毛没都个么样着，前当年收前两年毛的，但是那得千把个么样对吧？我真的แต่หมดเชื่อฉันแต่เรื่องงานเราแต่สนุกแต่เนี่ยพอสนุกก็มาแต่ก็เลยสิว่าแต่เนี่ยแต่ก่อนสนุกแต่เนี่ยพอมาแต่ก็คืออะไรวะ
Demo Karazungsung?
แต่เรื่องของเราเนี่ย
Dem Del. Mhm. We move on to verse number 8. Reflecting upon the harmful, disturbing emotions in this dark age, encourage yourself to apply the antidotes. So now, during these degenerate times, the afflictive emotions of beings are strong. Our desire, our hatred, our ignorance are very powerful. And this verse encourages us to apply the antidotes to these afflictions. And so these are the antidotes in brief. For desire, meditate on like ugliness, the ugliness of things. And for anger, the antidote is love. And for ignorance, meditate or reflect on interdependence.
真的在咱们讲中学习呢，别讲到现两班中，我们倡导学习，那到现结完了，我们这才留在你不点过去是吧？我这当中应该都牛毛，就是在节目，这娘们刚说，在家在娘们刚，咱就别想到这个适当的节目，适当情况我得在那嘛得写出来了。我真的这个呢也，但牛毛起码在这样也在娘们说家呢。牛毛是给我打的蛮一个去，这全面讲了，这上牛毛说把这写出来了真的有啊。
Then for a pride, the antidote is equalizing self and others. And for jealousy, the antidote is exchanging self and others. So you practice in the same way with each affliction in terms of sustaining mindfulness. So when you're angry, for example, just look at its nature, and then it may actually weaken. And in that sense, all afflictions are the same. When it arises and you practice, you look at its nature, and you look at it with an undistracted mindfulness, then the afflictive emotion can dissipate.
真的，他最强的就是这里他国外头啊， 닝메트인데 개체 망와다 삼네 소바 그마라 내텐데 스탄 닝메트인데 배면서 개체 망보를 추어지야 내가 추는 거 막. 한 상당 삼쇼게만 말하래 봐. 소남 침보리도 연인도 등상대 저지하는 거는 요 말이. 검소 소남 침보리도 삼쇼. 다 등상세. 라면 먼저 되지. 대사를 이만 말하래 봐. 그래서 옛날에 년내시나 요 농바 동바. 세명에서 저를 로사 먹어지. 요. 대단한 하는 이제 로도 배 공부를 써야 가야. 가시 돼 야를 좀 알아서 야서 이게 사동바제. 사진 버리신 지도 말. 지금 쇼해라고. 그래서 대면 다 계시 먹어요. 야나지 여행조사다 제 자자는 생각 나가 제 요래 제 요래 아 세면에 이제 다소도 제 쇼문에 쳐도나 제 양세요 월컵的经验去跟人家这这样忙不在去其他忙的我当时忙不就有了吧我这里到这时候这说白现在不忙掉过来是吧
Then we move on to verse number 9. Reflecting upon the abundance of adverse conditions during this dark age, encourage yourself to be patient. So, in these degenerate times, there are many obstacles to our practice. In these times of degeneration, Dharma practice is not easy. So, when we think about it, actually, like someone like Milarepa and those times that he was alive, he really must have had such incredible merit to be able to practice the Dharma under actually good conditions, because during that time, there were not so many distractions. There was no internet and many other distractions. Also, in Milarepa's time, there were actual empty lands where there were no people. There were actually many places you could just go and practice. Nowadays, that's very difficult to find any empty spot. But even if you find some empty land, if you go there, maybe the police will actually catch you, because it turns out someone actually owns this place. Every place is owned by someone. There is really no empty land where you can just go and stay. And then moreover, there are so many distractions nowadays. There's the internet and all kinds of things that we are constantly bombarded with. So nowadays, if practice is hard, and even if you really want to practice the Dharma, still there are so many things that keep you from it. There are so many things that prevent your practice, many obstructions, and so this verse encourages us to be patient, to forbear, endure these difficulties.
我他推你们在他现在这样的忙忙接有的，这样的咱整个是出了那起兵，给钱是做忙忙是做这经验，他还是忙不接有的，是真给钱是当成两两千呢，他浪出在钱嘛些呢，他还是看往不了不了，他还是往出了不了。哦，真的，但是这样咱说白了是共同的，说白偏用上，这说白了，但是你看这操作是吧？强，真的。给钱是这可能往这里面讲说叫操强说了，然后是上届的恐怕操不了，这个用是是这样的讲说，第十个去过的是啊。
So now, in these degenerate times, there are many negative conditions that obstruct our Dharma practice. It's hard to practice the Dharma. These are times where there is an abundance of adverse conditions and very few favorable conditions. And it's important that during these days that one knows how to transform these obstacles into the path. Because if one doesn't know how to transform them, take the obstacles themselves as practice, then one will fall under their power. So, however, if you can cultivate patience, you will gain all the benefits of practice. So, in a short-term sense, temporarily, you will accumulate merit, you will purify obscurations, and that is because you are able to accept obstacles, seeing them as friends, as supporting conditions instead of as obstacles. And as a result of that, ultimately, you will attain the state of Buddhahood. So this verse encourages us that, especially during such a time that we are in, it is very important to be very mindful, to be very careful.
咱们正常是上有别小黑嘛，那这种是但上弟弟呢，这弟弟呢，我们开始在面这种时候，我去到在错说说面这屋面这种要不是，我说到现在今天从到所学里面个别都是用那个，这听到我们这
说出来那个，
哦，面这的，我们要提的说这个吧，提到的这个，咱们面这的从到别小面这个要我这种呢，就那所学里面个都是嘛，所以没不是面。
Aina mikko magyarul szokni,
Ankumaanoo tälle Lensava so meidät kimpuilu ja rapu. Rosilla
Rere.
这给钱花是说，干不起就行了。你知道我在就从那来就这学了吧？完了。
So Ruben is just reflecting on the many negative conditions that we encounter these days. So even very virtuous things can become actually quite dangerous. For example, you may have a retreat and going into the Himalayas into retreat. And some people that they go there, and there's some people who really like to make a lot of offerings to accumulate merit, like mandala offerings. And then they like to offer, like use a mandala made out of silver for this offering. But even that which is actually a cause for merit, that could be very dangerous, because like nowadays, many people don't understand karma. So you might just, because you have that silver mandala, you might just run into some kind of criminal who kills the retreatant to take the mandala, to steal and to rob. They will just rob the retreatant, kill them, and take the silver mandala. So actually, it's a cause of great merit, but it could also be dangerous, because nowadays there's just so many negative conditions.
진짜 다 팔린 소린 좋아하더래. 팔린 소린 이만 안 맞지 동시 송아들라. 삼는 소주구만 돼. 그래서 나도 여행으로 팔린 소린 가래더니 쇼 상자는지 메시지 스테마나래. 어든로 산이 되지 시험에 시간 지난데 지금도 산이 도로야 말아. 어제 스테마세시는 메시지 동시치. 송 스테마 삼는 소주구만 돼. 소주 치고 스테냐나 카운터 确实，人的真的人这样的真是过的，不像我总是，那啥子干嘛的，大都有嘛，是看到真的看到了爬起过的是，我听到当然说在专注钱的地方呢，对不嘛的我后来也是。
Moving on to verse number 10, reflecting upon the ease with which one can squander away this life in distraction, wandering here and there, encourage yourself to be diligent. So we get distracted, and in distraction, our life just passes by. And Milarepa said that thinking later, and tomorrow, your life just passes by with no practice. So we need to practice with diligence, and we need to practice always. Pachung Rinpoche actually said, don't look for kind of special days like the astrology and stars, like for a perfect timing to practice virtue. Always practice.
没错。
That's it.
근데 지금은 알아요. 뭐 지금 택하서 정어지를 뭐 빵, 단 정어지를 뭐 나지. 뭐 참아. 진짜 뭐 정어요 봐. 정어지를 뭐 나지. 대차를 뭐 빵, 빵 통.
Got it, Jung.
정어지 아, 정어 신정어요 봐.
Okay. Oh.
这정어지를 뭐 빵을 또 빵을 빵을 통보요 서. 정어지를 뭐 빵을 토스. 녀몽만 봐. 치를 싸스 녀몽세. 뭐만 나이 배차. 切的被就会有的是啊，不算。定期日的，说的是定期这日大了别晓啊，这定期日大，切的就会的不少晓得大，所以啊那个，这因为没这期人，但因为没这期过的，因为没这些，但是没这些送球期过的，是吧？ 我蛮英国去的，这说是中学去过的啥？
And there's a song by Milarepa who said that so those sentient beings should send away the mountains of faults. He said that the afflictions are like hunting dogs running very fast. I'm chasing after the deer that is samadhi. So your samadhi or meditation is like a deer that is being chased by the hunter of afflictive emotions. And he says, therefore, protect yourself with unwavering, undistracted mindfulness.
哦，对，是吧？
Yes, sir?
真的，他整个是天主教里头，他在求他的是有节，这他们说这个些东西嘛，是天主是英国的，上面的，你看对比那时候，这蛮英国去过，上班的人影响多少些，我说的先把去，我真的在研究不蛮的，那真的在娘呢要在共同做出样，像这现在说马上接触样，我这就现在在，他可这个呢在蛮英国去过，所有的娘呢。많이 맞지야 캐치 모르는데 야이 소리는 야면 내가 말한테 가래 잠깐 무슨 좋은 걸 넣었으면서 이제 많이는 제 디시면 시도로 하는데 나서 그래서 되게 제가 캐치 모르게 스타트로 다시 하더라고.
So now we have gained a precious human body with its freedoms and endowments, and we have met the Dharma, and we're practicing the Dharma. So we should make best use of that. Don't spoil this chance, but take the essence and practice without distraction. And that means mainly to be mindful and undistracted. With mindfulness, encourage yourself to cultivate renunciation. And as you practice, you will have less anger and more bodhicitta. So mainly what we need is being undistracted. It's most important because if you're distracted, then you can't practice. And if you're not practicing and you're being distracted, these three poisons of attachment, anger, ignorance, they will take control. If you are undistracted, then you can practice. So that's being undistracted is really most important for our practice. So with that, we stop here for tonight.
呀，真的，当初我是当这里给现在这个东西。
We do Chittan Samgan dedication. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root, and lineage lamas, divine assembly of Yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, heroes, heroines, yogini, and assembly of Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions. Please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all sentient beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise within my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta. And through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to these. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. Even at death, may the torment of suffering not arise. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such, and in the pervasive clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo.
Yeah, okay, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, good night.
Good
Good
night.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias, Lama.
Gracias.
Buenas noches.
Yeah,
Buenas
thank you.
noches.
Thank you. Gracias.
Bye.
Thank you.
Gracias, Lama.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ina.
Yes,
Thank
gracias,
you.
Sina.
Gracias,
Gracias, Sina.
Gracias, Sofía. Besos al bebé.
Kisses to the baby.
Yes, baby's good. It's already 2.5.
2.5. My goodness.
Right? It's crazy how time flies.
Time flies.
Yeah.
Lots
How
of
are you?
love and kisses.
Okay.
Oh, you too.